Welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast. My name is Ian Ray, your host. Today I have Rina Harris, based out of London, United Kingdom, and she is a functional podiatrist. Rina, welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast.
Hi, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for appearing on my podcast. Love to share a little about your journey into becoming a podiatrist, specifically how you became a functional podiatrist, because that's pretty much a different type of work that you're doing. So please explain.
Yeah, so I've been a podiatrist in this industry for about 20 years, just over 20 years. And obviously, I trained as a traditional podiatrist, worked for many years in kind of that way and approach. And now I could say I have a very different perspective to the one I had when I first entered this workspace. So now, yeah, I'm more of a functional holistic podiatrist. And it all came about because I was having my own foot health issues, which I couldn't resolve with traditional approach and footwear, which was very frustrating and a bit embarrassing that I had these foot issues, but I was treating people with kind of similar pathologies or conditions. And through that kind of desperation and doing my research and stuff like that, I came across, the barefoot community, barefoot shoes, etc. And I just dived straight in it. And all this stuff that I do now, I first did it on myself. And I was like, okay, this goes so against everything I know and that I've learned. And I did it. I bought my first ever pair of Viva barefoot shoes on sale because I wasn't convinced they're going to do anything or work for me. For me, they worked really well because most of the time when I'm treating clients and patients now, I see that, footwear is one of the biggest kind of issues, the biggest contributor to our foot health issues. And I'm talking about, normal kind of conventional, traditional shoes. So yeah, I bought a pair of Vivas. At the time, I used to suffer with kind of quite a painful bunion. I was also developing a cyst on top of the joint. I also had plantar fasciitis and shin pain when I ran. And for me, they were amazing and they worked straight away. And I know that's not always the case with other people, but they're often a big puzzle to successfully treating foot health conditions and pathologies. So yeah, then I just, because of how well I responded to all the stuff that I was learning kind of mostly online, really, I started to change my approach and the way I treat my clients. And I've been doing this since probably 2020. COVID hit, so there was a time when I wasn't at work seeing patients one-to-one in person, but I was just learning, doing lots of courses, learning everything out there, just absorbing it as like a sponge and trying to unlearn quite a lot of stuff because it's quite hard when you come from the traditional world to kind of go completely against it. It is like almost like day and night difference. But since I've been doing this now for 5 years, it's just been amazing. And, it really does work. And it's such a more sustainable way of treating people. And so, yeah, and I really enjoy it. So that's been my journey to functional health.
What are your common, treatments or things that people are coming into, getting worked on their feet that you've seen? Let's say like top 5 or something. Just give me top 5 reasons why people are coming in.
Yeah. So bunion deformity is one of the biggest one, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is actually caused by footwear. And it can be due to laxity in the joints and kind of some hereditary kind of genetic component to it. There is also, but footwear does contribute mostly to bunion deformity. Then it would be, again, things to do with the big toe joints. So hallux limitus, hallux rigidus, very common. Neuroma, Moton's neuroma, bursitis, kind of, again, forefoot injuries or pathologies. Plantar fasciitis, very common. And kind of, tendinopathies like Achilles tendinopathy, FHL, flexor lucis longus. Those, I would say, are probably the most common ones that I treat a lot, and people just seem to have those kind of conditions. So yeah, sometimes I find myself kind of repeating myself with clients because you can be over and over kind of same stuff. But I also do see people who come to me referred by like physios or other healthcare professionals for, say, knee and hip issues, but that's obviously the feet are contributing to the issues that they're having. So yeah, I do treat kind of other stuff and work with other healthcare professionals as well. So
I know you talk about the foot, and like how that correlates with the lower limb, especially the glutes. There's a foot and to glute connection, correct?
yeah, yes. I mean, obviously all our movements are long chain kind of movements, so they require an equal contribution from all the joints there, so it's not just the foot doing it itself, it's work and nothing else is kind of contributing. So a lot of the kind of this conditions that I've mentioned there, they are multifactorial in nature, even though they might be at the foot or at the hip and maybe it's manifesting there, but it's often other things that are contributing towards it. So it can be sometimes a bit more complex, and it's not as kind of straightforward to treat some stuff. But yeah, the hip and glute are connected via the leg, or the leg, foot and leg, and then the muscles that are acting on those joints and bones. So yeah, I'm often giving people advice and exercises on glute strengthening and all this stuff. So yeah.
So for people who are, let's say, coming to you for their type of ailments and injuries or whatnot, what have they done to the point they're like, I have to see a functional podiatrist or some kind of like, because there has to be a point where people's lives come to saying, I'm at this point where I need to search for something, a solution. What point do you find from your clients that they've tried everything? So what are some of those things that they've tried?
Yeah, I am probably often the last person they're seeing, and they've tried everything else. So
Hmm.
they've been to a number of different traditional podiatrists. They have a bag of orthotics with them. They come in with. They've seen probably a like other healthcare professionals as well, and they come to me because they've tried all this stuff and it hasn't worked. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? Because also the way I work is kind of quite a new concept for a lot of people. And I guess to some extent that sometimes I think people hesitate a bit because they think it's too simple. It's like, oh, this is too simple. Like, how can this work? They feel like they have to have some kind of interventions and take something or have something to actually work. And I think, then they come to me because nothing else has worked. And although my process and this kind of process, when you work with the body and stuff, can take a little bit longer. So one has to be a bit more patient and also be kind of consistent. But equally, it's more of a long-term solution. So then, they're kind of putting all this kind of effort, I suppose, to some extent. But then, they're not, the symptoms don't come back and they actually end up being stronger than before they started getting those issues, and more educated about the body and how it works and what things kind of work and what don't work. So it is a bit of a process, but it 100% works. And yeah, and a lot of people end up being obviously quite happy that they don't have to mess around with, taking stuff or having, insoles, because having orthotics in the shoes, I used to prescribe a lot of orthotics.
Really?
Although initially they seem to be comfortable for people, they are such a nuisance because they don't, you have to have a very specific shoe and, they kind of, the foot slips off and, they don't fit in all shoes. And then they're like, what, I have to wear them in everything and I can't wear that shoe. They end up being quite a pain, to be honest. Even when I used to prescribe them, I used to get people say, with all these questions like, oh, I can't wear them all the time. And there's then all this stress about where, that they're not wearing them, etc. Don't get me wrong, orthotics have their place.
Sure.
If we have someone come in who literally can't take one step forward without being in a lot of foot pain, but, they need to walk to get to work or etc., live their life to some extent, orthotics are good. That's when I would maybe use orthotics to offload the foot.
Uh,
So they're fine, but they're so overprescribed and they're not for life. They're not something, here you go, have it, and this is yours for the rest of your life. But you have to come and get them renewed every so often. That's kind of what how the system works a bit, but that's definitely not the case. So we would want to offload the foot, and once the symptoms have calmed down, inflammation, everything, then we want to start loading the foot again. The foot is a load-bearing structure, and if you don't load it and use it as it was designed to be used, you get a lot of weakness and instability. You lose sensitivity in the foot, and the foot is a sensory organ. It's meant to feel the ground. That's all information to our brain and our body on how to place your foot on the ground and feel it. And it's all information about your environment. So it's really important that, use the foot in that way and actually take advantage of all it has to offer, because it has a lot to offer.
Yeah. When I see clients on the table, I always look at the feet first. Obviously, I look at a whole body approach, but I'm looking at the shoes and then look at if they have any type of deformities first, and then I always like to educate them first about footwear, even though they're not there for footwear, because I talk to them like that is the most overlooked part of the body. We care about how we look, care about our body, again, six pack abs, arms, legs, but we don't really look at the foot, which is the foundation of our whole body that we take steps every day, and so it's just one of those aspects where it's overlooked and it's not properly trained. But like you're talking about the load, I myself, I've suffered through shin splints and ankle injuries, so that's how I got into this foot health and with whole barefoot shoes, because
Yeah.
I've always figured what's the cause, what's the root cause, and I think it's the foot. I haven't properly trained, I wasn't taught about that in sports or even growing up. So curious to see, what are you doing to educate your clients so that it's simple for them to apply it, or even to, really for your whole clientele, and how they can apply into their life and make those steps?
Hmm. Yeah, so education is obviously a massive part of what I do, because I think what I like people to understand is that I am not going to heal them or fix them. Their own body is going to heal them and fix them. But we
Hmm.
have to provide the best environment for our foot, i.e. the shoes, basically, the shoes we're in. And we need to stimulate them in the way that they need to be stimulated to be strong and resilient, because they're built to be strong and resilient. So education is such a massive part. And I think once you go down that route and you kind of explain what are the roles of the foot and what it's meant to do, and all this stuff, that, say, for example, foot is a sensory organ, and foot is not a rigid structure, it's a dynamic structure. It's meant to move and change shape. And the muscles in our feet, many people don't know that we have, well, they probably know we have some muscles in our feet, but when I explain 4 layers of muscles, 5 with the plantar fascia, and it's such a busy area under our foot, and that muscles have to lengthen in order to contract. So our foot is essentially a spring with every step we take, and all the stuff that they've never heard of. And then when we apply that to the treatment of how we then going to treat it with exercises and all these tools like footwear and maybe some kind of balance tool and all this stuff, then it makes sense. And when they get it, because, it's not rocket science, it makes sense. And obviously I explain it in a way that it's understandable. Then they're more likely to kind of, I guess, go with it and stick with the plan. But I always also explain that our body is very intelligent and it knows what to do, and it will, it has an ability to self-organize and self-heal, but it does need those, the right conditions to do that. So, and when we do provide it, even with feet, and it's not just feet, anywhere in our body, if we treat it the way it's meant to and we strengthen it and stimulate it, then, our body actually does quite well. It's not going against us, it's actually going with us. But, when it comes to footwear, which cause a lot of issues, we are more concerned with fashion than function. And that's the other way around where it should be, really. And also we know from studying barefoot populations in kind of Africa and certain tribes in Africa and Asia, where people are still more barefoot, they don't have any of the issues that we encounter in the Western kind of world, because they're not in shoes, so they don't really have bunions and plantar fasciitis and all this stuff. And if you also observe their feet, they tend to have quite flat, wide feet, but in our culture, and we think that flat feet are a bad thing, and then they're not. So it's not, I'm not so concerned with the look of the foot. It's more how it functions and can it achieve the roles that it's meant to, which is all the stuff that I said. Can it feel? Can it change shape? Can it lengthen? Can it contract? All this stuff.
Can you share with us maybe a few examples, real life success stories that you've had with working with clients, what they're coming in with, what type of like ways that you were able to help them, and then of course the outcome? Because I love hearing real life success stories. So feel free.
I know. They're amazing. And I always tell my clients, because sometimes when you treat people, especially this way of working, because it's not a kind of repeated business, it's not like I give you this and then you have to come back and get more of it. So sometimes people go and, you kind of don't hear about them and they come to your mind. You're like, oh, I wonder how they're getting on. But I always say to them, please let me know keep me posted on how you're getting on. And I have some clients who really do that, and I love it every time I get emails from them. And even sometimes you get people with questions because things are not going, maybe as expected for them. But then there's the success stories I actually had the other day. One of my very kind of good patient, I don't know why I'm saying good, but she's lovely, and she's worked really hard on kind of her foot health. So she originally had plantar fasciitis. So she likes to run recreationally, but she's really fit and active. She goes to the gym and she like surfs and does all these things, cool things. And so I treated her. She wasn't kind of one that just came a few times, but she's come again and again, a couple of years, but probably every kind of 3 months or something. And we worked on her running technique as well. And so only a couple of days ago, she sent me an email just to kind of update me, and she was like, everything's fine, like don't worry, I'm emailing you. But she said she'd been on holiday surfing, and she noticed that when she was walking on sand, that her footprint had more of an arch. I mean, to me, to her was like, wow, my feet were always flat and like my arch was on the ground, and I had this like not much shape to the footprint. And she was so happy that she's got this shape. And I just said that, for me, kind of arch height is not really an issue, but it just goes to show that what she's been doing for the last kind of couple of years, her feet have actually changed structure probably a little bit, and she can visibly see that, which for her is really exciting, and is for me, because she's happy and she has put in the work. She's one of those that what she will do kind of she will take your guidance and do it. So also the way I tell my clients when I'm working with them is that I'm guiding you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not kind of treating you per se, because I'm not doing kind of hands-on kind of manual therapy or anything like that. But I'm guiding you. I'm giving you the information, and then it's up to them to kind of go and implement it in their kind of daily lives. But she's a good one. And then I've got many like that. I've got quite a few, obviously, stories with kind of bunion deformity, especially those that have pain. When they come back, I'm looking for that toe gap, between the first and the second. And, it's very exciting when that starts to appear naturally. But, at the end of the day, all this is because they're doing the work. I'm not really I'm just guiding them. I'm giving them all the information. And yeah, so it's kind of, in that way, you kind of empower them, because when it works, it's like, oh, I did this, rather than, oh, somebody else did it for me and I have no clue what happened, or, just, yeah. So it's nice for them to be more involved in their foot health. And I think, that is kind of how we should really be about our own health. We shouldn't put our own kind of health in someone else's hands, unless it's, something emergency where, you actually need to go to A&E, or, you need that kind of treatment. But when it comes to our body, we need to be informed and take an interest in it, I think, to be able to live kind of a long and happy life, if you see what I mean.
As far as like the evolution, or I guess the future of foot health and even barefoot shoes, where do you see that going? Because there's so many, I guess, prominent people who are educating and more research about the foot and the fashion and whatnot. But where do you see foot health and even barefoot shoes evolving in the future?
I think I definitely see. obviously more brands coming out, which is great because there are more options. And, when I kind of started in like 2018, 19, in this kind of, looking at shoes for myself first, obviously, there weren't as many options as now. And now there are many options of different styles of shoes. And that's really important because that, otherwise people, are more reluctant to go down this route. Even sometimes when it's more from a preventative measure, because actually wearing these shoes will prevent you from getting issues. So then people wait until they have an issue to kind of get them, if you see what I mean. But now I feel like there's no reason why you shouldn't kind of get a pair and try them, because you can get them at any style. And I see it growing, really. More people are wearing them. Often when I'm in my local park and stuff, I see more people wearing foot-shaped shoes. And a lot of the time I kind of will go, nice shoes to them. They probably think I'm weird. But I just like to, say, "Oh, I like your shoes."
It's a good conversation
And
starter.
yeah, exactly. And then I would really like this to expand into our kind of profession as well. So yes, barefoot shoes I think are definitely on the rise. More people are wearing them, more people are open to them. They're looking nicer, etc. But then I feel like more podiatrists could be kind of going in this direction as well, and more inclined, and they should be, there is all this information out there, and we shouldn't be like blinded to it or not wanting to go there and kind of just try them out for ourselves first and do our own experiments. And if you like them, then obviously adapt some of these approaches as well and offer this to your patients and clients. And also then in the education system, as you're training to be a podiatrist, I think there should definitely be a module or something, subject on natural podiatry. And people, again, should learn about this. And it's so crazy to me that this doesn't exist, this module of natural podiatry, natural foot health, natural movement, natural footwear. But maybe we'll change it one day. Maybe we'll wiggle our way in somehow. We'll see. But it would be good if it kind of went in that direction. I actually had recently a conversation with a not very recent graduate, but kind of say maybe 2 or 3 years. And I was
Uh-huh.
asking them, how is it now? Like when she was studying, because obviously I studied actually a long time ago. And from what I gathered is almost exactly what I had learned. And I was like,
No.
no way, like literally no way. And even a couple of her lecturers that she told me by name, they're
Uh-huh.
still lecturing now that they lectured me. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And they're kind of, I mean, it's fine. Obviously, they know their stuff, and I don't want to put people down. But I just feel like things need to evolve. It's
Yeah.
good to evolve, and it's not good to stagnate ever in any profession, any field. Things move on, and now obviously we're seeing that things are really moving on in the world with AI and stuff. But have to evolve and look for better ways of doing things and treating patients.
Yeah. I think I was hearing a podcast about saying that um, sometimes new research will emerge like after a 30-year period, because that's when the professors, eventually retire somewhere. So there's always new ideas coming in. It's just, it takes 30 years for new ideas to be implemented. And it's kind of crazy to think about that. Cause like you were saying, like that's, probably 10 plus years ago that you went to school and they're teaching the same thing. That's absurd, because we're in this
Exactly.
age, we're in an age where there's more research now, more findings of what you're doing for natural foot health. So I think that's definitely across everything. And I think the more that you and I and others who are continue to educate and in promoting, of course, advocating for what we do, the more people hopefully will catch on, and of course, the research will eventually meet us there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love to ask you the last final question, but what are some ways that you're planning to create more exposure awareness of the functional natural podiatry? What are you doing for this upcoming future?
Well, so far, obviously, I work for myself. I have my kind of
Hmm.
clinic, do one-to-one clients, and do virtual consultations, which is great. I've done some educational content for Viva Barefoot. I'm kind of a brand ambassador for them. So I work on different projects with them, and I really enjoy working with them. I love their products and their ethics and everything else. Their shoes work really well for my feet, actually. They fit me really well. So I'm mostly in Vivos. And then I've done a little bit of work for a period of time with Gait Happens. And now I'm going to be working. Hopefully, I'm just doing my TFC guide certificate. So I'm hoping to get that done. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but things are always getting in the way as they do. But I'm really committed to getting that ASAP. And then I am hoping to start doing some workshops with TFC, and then doing more stuff like that. I'm hoping to then branch out and see where else I can get to educate people. It's more about educational stuff. So yeah, so that's quite exciting from this year. So I might be doing less, but like consultations and more kind of that kind of stuff. And that's exciting, really. So yeah.
That's cool. I know they were not in London not too long ago for the UK Barefoot Expo, and they came and hung out with you and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think that would be great to have workshops there. I think that would be really awesome to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be great.
Well, Rena, I'd love to close off and find out how can people learn more about what you're doing there in London. How can people learn to, I guess, if you want to share a website, email, social, and of course, ways to contact and learn more about what you're doing. So feel free to share.
So people can find me on Instagram. Mainly use Instagram. Haven't been as active recently, but we'll be doing it. But my Instagram is Rina B Harris, the functional podiatrist. My website is thefunctionalpodiatrist.com. My email, rina@thefunctionalpodiatrist.com. So yeah, you can find me in any of these platforms. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm very happy to answer anything. And yeah, thank you very much for having me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Rena.
Thank you.